Pandemonium Reigns.
This just in. The NCAA still sucks. They sucked yesterday. They'll suck today. They'll forever suck. Mike points out before we get going that the NCAA has cleared Tez Walker 5 games into the Tar Heels schedule. I'm Dan. He's Mike. This is Pandemonium Reigns, and the NCAA still sucks.
They are as crooked as any elected official in the government. They are as incompetent as any organization in that same realm. I don't know what to say. That's absolutely pitiful. Y'all just go away. Just please go ahead and die. Give up the fight. Pull the plug. You're done.
So my son has this routine, whether I put him down for a nap or put him down at bed for the night. I lay him down. I say the scripture over him. I cover him up, and then I begin to hand him things. His Monster from Sesame Street, his juice cup, and a book. All right. And the process is the same, the exact same every same time, dude. Every stinking time. So here's what happens. I'll lay him down, I'll cover him up, I'll go to hand him Monster, and I'll go, and he'll push it away from me, and I'll go to put it down at the end of the crib, and he'll go, reaching for it, and then he'll let me hand it to him. And then I repeat the exact same process with the juice cup, right? I go to hand it to him, don't want it, pushes it away. I go to put it down at the end of the crib, I want it, I hand it to him. And we do the exact same thing with the book right after that. You know what that reminds me of? The NCAA. They have no rhyme or freaking reason for what they do. They just do it, and they whine, and you know what? They just get away with it. You know what? And my son, he just gets away with
it. Yeah. Well, it makes sense when it's a toddler, not when it's an organization that's God knows how old. And for some reason, we still let them run some of these sports. It's obvious that football is breaking away from it. The playoff is the end-all, be-all. They're not ran or owned by the NCAA. But, unfortunately, this happens in every sport. Basketball, you name it, softball, baseball, where they're much more involved. They're much more involved with the postseason of those sports. It's a joke. Mm-hmm. It's a fraud. And I feel for this young man. I don't remember all the reasons why he transferred more than one time or transferred now to North Carolina. Obviously, he put on a show at Kent State to get him to North Carolina. But 5 games gone, and he's a junior. So, I don't even know what you do. Mac Brown should do the same ordeal that he did last time when he was so saucy with the NCAA. He should do it all over again.
No kidding. Well, at this point, all we can do is complain about it because, the NCAA is not going to hear it. So with that said, we got a weekend slate that we got to look at. And before we tap into this, I want to tell you to like and subscribe, follow us, do us a favor right now in this moment, while you're driving, whatever it is you're doing, while your ears are being tickled, push the follow button, push the subscribe button, hit like on this video, you stupid piece of crap. Just do it.
Also, we love you.
And we love you. Yes. All right. So we got a great weekend coming up upon us, another one that we do not deserve. So with that said, the Red River Rivalry, noon kickoff on ABC, 11 o'clock a.m. Central Time, which if you are a fan of one of these teams, you got to be exhausted with this kickoff time. This is, we're talking about one of the premier rivalries in college sports, Texas, Oklahoma, and you keep doing an 11 a.m. noon kickoff depending on your time zone. It's highway robbery.
Hey, here's the greatest benefit of these teams leaving the Big 12, making their way to the SEC, is there will not be any more big noon kickoffs on Fox for these teams. Sure, they'll have noon games. Every team will, and they'll continue to do that, but they won't be in that big noon on Fox slot anymore. It'll be, ESPN.
ABC.
It's what?
This is ABC. This is ESPN, bro.
Good grief. What are we doing?
Hey, right?
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
I take it all back. This is why we don't make assumptions, kids. This is why you do your homework, or you look at your phone that's in your lap where you're looking at the game's preview in real time. What are we doing?
Your big noon kickoff is Maryland at Ohio State.
Go Terps.
Texas.
What are we doing?
Yeah, it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. Make this a night game and don't ever change it. I don't care how good or bad each team is. It's a heated rivalry. Put it at 7:00. Texas coming in at 5.5-point favorites with an over/under of 60.5. Points shall be scored. Dragons shall be slayed. And just as you mentioned in passing just kind of a second ago, the last Red River rivalry that we get as Big 12 conference members.
Yeah. I'll never be a huge fan of these teams coming Southeastern. I'll never be a huge fan of that, but it is an awesome rivalry to be in the conference. That's among the best. It's right up there with Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, Auburn. That's your cup of tea. You name it. It's right up there with it. I do expect points to be scored in this one. 60 is a lot. It's not that much. It's just 30 apiece. This game could totally go into the 30s and 40s. It's done it way too many times when these teams, and granted, there's been a Lincoln Riley effect in some of those games that we've talked about, that we've beaten that horse into a fine pulp. But points could definitely be scored here. At the same time, the defenses have come along. Brent Venables getting things much more headed in the right direction in year two. The defensive line of Texas looking like they're already in the SEC with what they did to Alabama, what they've done to opponents so far. The offense has, taken halves off here and there at times. I don't expect that to be the case for this big game. What's your feel, though? I mean, where you sitting at on how many points you see being scored here and who you got?
Well, that's like the fun stuff. I want to get like through the meat grinder first, if that's okay. I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
So last Red River rivalry in this conference, and also if you look at Texas's schedule, really their last major test on paper anyway. Now, Kansas State is never a pushover. I believe they have guys like TCU left as well. But as far as roster for roster, I mean, this is going to be it. And you never really know in these rivalry games. I mean, especially if you've played the video game, you just never know in the rivalry games. But we've seen it in real life as well. I mean, we saw it last week. What business on paper did Auburn have in hanging with Georgia? Rivalry game, Auburn playing with house money, right? Not saying that Oklahoma is playing with house money because they have a lot on the table. They are the most quiet top 15 team in the country, and a national brand with a recognizable logo that you'll find, all over the world, and nobody's talking about them. Yeah,
it's funny for, I guess, a 2022 hangover for Oklahoma to really be in effect because of how big they are as a brand, because of how consistent they've been, since basically the day that Stoops got there and had Leach calling his plays, doing that thing. The early success that they had, they didn't stop winning games. They barely, if ever, had a drop off until 2022. And it's weird to think that, the only reason that I could come up with is their schedule not being so great so far. And again, just a hangover effect from 2022 when they were terrible, breaking in a first year head coach with a lot of transfers in, some guys out, obviously Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler, whatever. That's really all I can think of as to why they've kind of been written off and have been so under the radar for an undefeated number 12 team in the country. Yeah. Oklahoma nonetheless.
Yeah. So with that said, Texas wins this game, got to be staring at the playoff. I mean, unless you just straight up pull old classic Texas losing one that they shouldn't, which is still doable. Kansas State can still pull this off. But again, your last big test. But if you win this, man, you got to be staring at the playoff, right? That's got to be if week 8 gets here and the Herb Streets of the world doesn't have Texas in your playoff, then what are we doing here? Because there's nobody left.
Yeah. After this game featuring unbeaten Oklahoma, the next best records that they'll face is 1-loss BYU at home. They also get 1-loss Kansas State at home, and of course that's all as of right now. Those teams could drop a game before then. Texas could lose this game for sure. They could lose, along the way. It is what it is. They close out October hosting BYU, who at the moment has one loss, and then pick back up the first weekend in November with currently one loss, Kansas State, who doesn't look as potent as they have been at times. We know they're dangerous, and Lord knows they live to snipe a team like Texas. It's what they live for especially with the target that you've talked about and that we've talked about on here with these teams leaving the conference, that how big the target on their back will be, wanting to slam the door shut and let it hit them where the good Lord split them.
Yeah.
They could lose a game, but it's going to get much lighter for Texas after Saturday.
Absolutely. So if you win, it's right there. If you lose, there's a whole nother narrative on you because you've beaten Bama, but now you've lost to Oklahoma, who, again, nobody has been talking about. Now shifting gears to Oklahoma, like, who are you? Again, super quiet inside the top 15. If you win, I mean, you got to be staring at the college football playoff as well, right? I mean, we're that far along for them, I would think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The winner of this game. I mean, the winner of this game needs to be really the Big 12 relies on the winner of this game not losing again.
Yeah.
Is the truth of it. All common knowledge and common sense points to Texas doing it because of their win in Tuscaloosa, if nothing else, and how long we've been waiting for Texas to get back. But, I mean, if Oklahoma wins this game, they're right there looking at a playoff bid as well.
Agreed. And I think I want to point out some statistics that might surprise you and hopefully surprise the listeners out there. The first one that I want to lead off with, because I'm like, who is Oklahoma? Who are they? And I was pointed out by a podcaster that I like to listen to, points out 2.5 takeaways per game for the Oklahoma defense.
Yeah, and that's strong.
That's real strong.
It's strong. It's just not as strong for me when it's Arkansas State, SMU, Tulsa, Cincinnati, who gave them a 14-point game when everyone thought it would be much more than that, even though it was at Cincinnati. And then, they murder Iowa State, which everyone's doing this year.
Yeah.
But sure, yes, absolutely still impressive to get your defense's hands on that many, turnovers is very impressive.
Yeah.
It's shocking, really, the turnaround. We're in a vintage second-year turnaround. This is what good coaches do in year two. And obviously that's just supplementing their offense, which has been fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Some other statistics that I want to throw at you. Large in part, in some places, Texas and Oklahoma are at the top of this inside of the Big 12. Rushing yards per game, Texas 191, Oklahoma 157. For the brand that is Oklahoma, I think that I would like to see that 157 higher. For who they are. Brand. Speaking slowly of the brand and just who they are. Here's the one that caught me off guard. I was not ready for this. Passing yards per game. Texas, 286. Oklahoma, 352. Dylan Gabriel, dude, doing work. A quiet 1,500 yards, 7 yards away from pushing 1,600, 15 touchdowns, 2 picks. It's better than Quinn Ewers, who's sitting at 1,310 scores.
You're correct. It is better.
You're going to bring the opponents up again.
No, I'm not going to do it here.
Okay.
Because I've already done it a time or two, so I'm not going to do it here. But I am going to say that I do like the balance of Texas better. And the reason being, you've got Jonathan Brooks leading the way on the ground for Texas at 597 yards, 6.9 per carry through 5 games. And now I will remind you here that is having played Alabama at Alabama. Whereas for Oklahoma, you've got a guy at 199, Marcus Major, you've got Walker at 193. Not quite the same sexiness when it looks at, per carry.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot more through the air for Oklahoma, which is typical Oklahoma, the way it has been. That's nothing new. It is kind of funny that it's a defensive coach running it now, a defensive head coach that's running the program there now, and they're doing those things. But yeah, I do like the balance of Texas more when you're just looking at a couple hundred yards here or there in Gabriel's favor versus the schedule that he's played.
Fair enough. Well, last statistic, and then we'll get in predictions. Their defense sits at number 1 and number 2 in the conference. Texas allowing 290 yards per game. Oklahoma allowing 319 yards per game. So I think you do make a good point with considering the opponent and the balance that you mentioned that is Texas is going to have an impact on that defensive number as well. All right, well, let's get into the fun stuff. Before we do that, though, I want to ask you, what's the X factor? What's the X factor? What's the indicative element, person, play, group, whatever, going into this?
There's two that jump just straight off the page for me.
Okay.
And it's both on defense for Oklahoma. Can their defensive line do anything more than Alabama's front was able to do? Meaning, can they speed Quinn Ewers up? Can they make him comfortable? Can they force him into a turnover when he's been very, very clean with the ball so far?
Yeah.
Both quarterbacks have three interceptions combined, the two of them through 10 games. Can they do anything that Alabama wasn't able to do defensively in this game? And then I look at the cornerbacks and I look at the safeties. Are they able to do anything when you talk about Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, Whittington, tight end? That's a filthy threesome of pass catchers for the Longhorns. The Sooners are spreading the ball around as well. Now whereas I highlighted Texas running backs, Oklahoma's doing it through the air. They've got some really, really nice numbers there. But again, can the defensive line do anything that Alabama wasn't able to, or their secondary pick up the slack there?
Yes,
if not,
I agree with you. I'm trying not to laugh, man, if I'm totally honest, because you said threesome and my mind went to what you diggity doing here. So I'm gonna move on. No, I agree with you. I think the X factor for me is going to be the Oklahoma defense as well. My mind went back to those elite Clemson defenses under Brent Venables and how aggressive they were, and that's going to play the cause and effect game with Quinn Ewers and what kind of impact that has on him. But I really think it's them. I think you're going to see an uber aggressive Sooner defense. And that being said, can Texas respond with the continued balance? Because I think Texas also offensively is going to match that aggressiveness and take their shots downfield. I mean, you have the dudes, Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, right? And you've got the running game, as you said. But how is the aggressiveness of Oklahoma going to bite them in the butt? Are there going to be times where they do need to let it come to them a little bit? And I just don't think that's Venables' mindset or DNA. He's a go-getter.
Nor do I think, and I also don't think they can play that game. I think they have to be aggressive, that they have to force the issue. I think if they sit back, I think Texas will put up 50 on. I mean, could put up 50 on them. They do not want to let this game come to them. I don't think they need to be aggressive, find ways to do it.
Yes, see, that's my argument. I think Texas can do it no matter what style they play. But
and I agree.
With that being said, I think you do need to play the aggressiveness because, like, if you're going to do it, like, it needs to be because you pursued them hot.
And it's almost like we talked about Tennessee needing to do with Spencer Rattler. Don't sit back if he's already going to have a big game. In theory, obviously didn't, and you got pressure with 4 and 5, and especially if you blitz him more than that, you beat him up all night long.
Yeah,
why let Quinn Ewers sit there and do that to you if you're not having success with 4? Be aggressive, be exotic. Venables is among the best at that. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's your best route, man, if you're Oklahoma.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's get into the predictions here. We've talked it to death. Going to be a long segment here. Texas, 5.5, over under 60.5. What you got?
Texas is going to cover. I think Texas is good for a 10 to 14-point win here. I'm going to say that we hit the over because I think it's going to be something like 41 to 28 or 30 for Oklahoma.
Narrow down the number for me. I got to write it down. Got to put it in ink.
41-30 Texas.
41-30.
Yeah, that's just the way I see it playing out. I've got a lot of trust in them. Obviously, Sark, man, is what's not really, I feel like, getting talked about unless you really dig deep. It's just all about, Texas in general and Quinn Ewers and the weapons outside.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's coaching. I think he's in the middle of one of his best coaching efforts outside of, 2020 Alabama, or he'll never have weapons like that again, probably. But I think he's been fantastic. Can't say enough about their defense and the strides that they've taken there. Just the way they were able to maul Alabama at times. I mean, if they're able to speed Gabriel up or put him on the ground a bunch. I don't like Oklahoma's run game in this. They already don't seem totally dead. Obviously, they're doing things through the air, and you stick with what's working. But I think they need to be able to run and buy some time for Gabriel, have some play action opportunities, yada yada, RPOs.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like the way that sets up for them. I think they're still probably like a year, maybe two behind what Texas has been able to do and how they've built back kind of really frequently. Obviously, they're in year 3 and Oklahoma's in year 2 of the current era. You know what I mean? It could be as simple as that.
Yeah.
But I like Texas by 10 to 14 in this game.
All right. 41-30 Texas, he says. I'm going to say Texas wins, but they don't cover. I've got them 35-31. And let me just say that as I give my final score here, the only thing that will surprise me as far as outcome goes is really just an Oklahoma win of any sort. That's really the only thing I think is going to surprise me. I see a Texas win here, which is crazy because the ESPN FBI has got Texas at 45%. They like Oklahoma here. I
forgot to mention that.
But Vegas is obviously leaning Texas. At the end of the day, yes, this is the best roster that from here on out Texas will face on paper. But for dude, stud for stud, star for star, I like for Sarkisian to look at his team and go, okay, listen, I know who you are, but I believe that my dude is better than your dude. So we're going to sling it downfield. We're going to run it down your throat when the down and distance is short, right? I just like Texas's dudes better. So you've got 41-30 Texas. I've got 35-31 Texas. We're both taking the over. Texas gets the win in the last Red River rivalry. Say that 5 times fast in the Big 12. The Tide travel to Aggieland come Saturday, 3:30 kickoff, more like 3:45 kickoff because it will be on CBS, and I'm so done with this SEC contract. Cannot wait for this to be over. Nonetheless, the Tide travel to Aggieland, Alabama, 1-point favorites. And as we just said before we hit the record button on this, Alabama, not a very good offensive team.
Not a very good offensive team. We talked about this before we hit the record button too, but a super weird over under of 46.
Yes.
That's so low for a game of this magnitude because we got to talk about how big this game is for both coaches in a minute. 46 points is a weird number. It's obviously a low number. I mean, not even 25 points a piece if you break it down that way. Alabama's offense struggling mightily to pass the ball consistently. They can hit the deep ball. Just how many times can they do it is really how I would describe their pass game right now.
Right.
And can they hit anything intermediate that's not a screen or a drag or, line of scrimmage throw? We'll see. Weird number. The defenses are playing well outside of for Texas A&M on the road at Miami. I mean, Miami's playing a lot better. That they have a lot to say with that more than just Texas A&M and how off they were that day. But, yeah, that's so low, and Vegas is expecting defense.
Yeah, as they should. I mean, I am.
Yeah. I would expect both defensive lines to have a big day, I think.
Well, I mean, you just look at Bama and the offensive struggles and, the playing around of Milroe at quarterback and, him throwing Jarrett Gorntano-like interceptions. And then you flip over to the other side, A&M and the loss of Wagman or however you say it, and inserting the son of legend Brad Johnson. I don't even know his first name. Luke Johnson, Wes Johnson, Mike Johnson.
I think you had it. Brad.
No, his son. What's the son's name?
Oh, Max. Sorry. Yeah,
Max. Yeah.
Max
last time I heard
Johnson.
Yeah, the last time I heard the name Max was on the Goofy movie. So nonetheless, that's not ideal for them. I mean, they were very hopeful with Wagman. They liked that trajectory. So surely offensive woes. But if you're looking at both, all right, and you're looking at both on paper, I really like what A&M has to offer, really no matter who it is, because of Evan Stewart and Ananias Smith and, just some of the weapons that they have there. I'm really surprised at this 1-point favor in Bama's direction. Like, what are you telling me about A&M at home? Are you saying that the Bama defense is that stout? Because with a porous offense, a defense can only hold up for so long. Right.
100%.
A defense more than likely, is not going to score you enough points needed to win a football game for you. But if it's the opposite, where you've got a functioning offense, but a porous defense, you like your odds better, because at the end of the day, you have to get points on the board, especially in today's world. But I'm really can't figure out that spread, that 1-point spread in Alabama's favor.
Yeah, no, I can't either. Especially what I can't figure out is the matchup predictor, 66% in Alabama's favor. That just seems, look, we just talked about it. Oklahoma is like a 55-45 favorite in the matchup predictor. Alabama 66-34 over Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Here's what I can't. Here's where I have issues. Are we saying that the Miami loss for Texas A&M is that much worse than the Texas loss for Alabama? Are we saying that? We have to be saying something along those lines, because Alabama's offense has just been so on and off. Sure, they had a great day against Mississippi State. LSU did. South Carolina did.
Yeah. Who
hasn't had a great day really against Mississippi State so far with their offense and all the changes going on there.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, man. And we also, if we haven't mentioned it here yet, the line's trickling down. It's coming closer and closer to a pick 'em. It was up to 2, maybe 3 to start out, and it's only down to Alabama by 1 right now. But I don't have any read on what the signs are for them to be so much more of a favorite than Texas A&M in the matchup predictor, starting out as a road favorite here. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah. I really think this game comes down to what Jalen Milroe that Bama gets. Can
I think
he connect?
You're totally correct.
Yeah. Can he hit on some deep balls? And if he can, I don't think he has to hit very many. I really, really don't. Will they show some quarterback powers, some veers with him? Can they find some ways to get him in open space? His athleticism, his ability as a ball carrier is a major difference to me, which brings me back to this 1-point spread. I would like to think it has more of an impact on that. But I guess that all depends on Tommy Rees, right? Like, can he dial up the calls? Can he lure the safeties down with some quarterback run and then show quarterback power and then try to hit something over the top? I'm not real sure. But then you have just the opposite. If Milroe does this thing, which he has done in pretty crucial moments of throwing it to, throwing the out or throwing the corner with the defender sitting up underneath it, for the easiest pick of their life. And if they get that, Jalen, then it's just the opposite. And I think it's more than a 1-point spread in A&M's favor. So I really don't understand these numbers.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. There's so many numbers. Like, I like Texas A&M's. I don't know much about their running game just because of the guys they've lost. We see Devin Achane doing the things he's doing in Miami. I don't know much about Moss and Owens. I don't know and Daniels. I don't know as much about those guys, but I love Evan Stewart. I love Anai Smith. I like them better than Alabama's pass catchers right now, mainly and in part due to the guy delivering the ball. Looking at you, Jalen Milroe. And the other thing is he's as freaky of an athlete as we've seen starting at quarterback in the SEC in a minute. Okay.
Yes.
He's taking 15 sacks. Being that guy, he's still taking 15 sacks. This is a good Aggie front. Lord, they paid, they NIL'd for him. They did all the things that Jimbo said they haven't done for him. That's a solid front. Texas A&M's quarterbacks have only taken 6 sacks apiece, 3 apiece.
Dude, okay.
3. Max Johnson's taken 3. Johnson's a little lower in the completion percent department. He's only at 62.5 for 60.7, but there's just not enough things to get me to like Alabama that much on the road here.
Yeah, okay. I'm I think we're going to land in a similar spot then. All right, so let's talk final scores, over unders. Let's nail it down here. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Paper, rock, scissors, shoot. I win. I'm going to take the Aggies 28-17 at home. I think you're going to get a struggling Milroe. I think that Bama and A&M will go back and forth into the top of your fourth quarter or late into the fourth quarter, probably midway through, and I expect Milroe to make a really costly mistake. His legs will keep them in it. In the end, somewhere he's going to throw it, causing them to fall short. 28-17, Aggies.
I'm right there with you. Even lower on the score, on the points total, because I do like the defenses more than the offenses here. And I'm going A&M wins this outright. The spread's a non-factor because it's 1 point. 23-13, Texas A&M.
Whoa, so Bama doesn't do much of anything, is what you're telling me.
Not much at all.
Wow. Well, hopefully this is one of the last times that we have to tune in to CBS to catch one of these classics. Nonetheless, we're both taking the Aggies, hosting the Tide. I got them 28-17. He's got them 23-13. Roll, Aggies, roll. Kentucky Wildcats, meow, traveling to the Dogs, woof, woof. I regret doing that. I'll never do that again. 7 o'clock, ESPN in Sanford Stadium. Kentucky fans all over TikTok letting Georgia fans know that they coming. Talking Deion Sanders type language. We coming. UK coming. I just want to lead it off with this, bro. Ray Davis will not do what he did last week. I know I'm stating the obvious. He will not. He's good.
If Ray Davis has 60 yards, okay? If he has 60 yards, I'll be surprised. I'm just saying. I'm just telling you how I'm going to feel. Yes.
Kentucky's got some balance to him, though.
Okay. All right. Perfect segue, Dan. Perfect segue.
Okay.
All right. They've got some balance to them. And they didn't need – all right. So throw out the Florida game because they didn't need a lick of balance, right?
Okay.
Vanderbilt game. You got Vanderbilt 2 weeks ago now. Devin Leary, 205 pass yards, touchdown, 2 picks. Interceptions are the theme because I think he's thrown one in every game except for maybe Florida because, again, like 15 attempts. All garbage games before that, I believe he threw a pick. Obviously, he put up some yards. He's got 10, 1,200 on the year, whatever. I don't like their balance. They and again, they didn't have to show any of it against Florida because Florida didn't know how to tackle Ray Davis and they didn't want to. But think about the runs and the way that Davis ran on Florida. Think about the long one that he hit off the left side of the offensive line there when it just opened up like the Red Sea. That is not happening in Sanford Stadium Saturday night.
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, he's not going to do what he did. I think he's going to get his. And that statement could still be shy of 100. I mean, that could sit around 80, I think. 75 to 80 won't surprise me. 60 feels awful low in my mind. Because I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're good defense in the NFL, Steelers. I don't know if they're good. Whatever. Any NFL team, you're looking at Devin Leary, you go, okay, well, he's a smart decision maker. He can make all the throws. So there's a bit of respect there when you look at him. If Georgia does this thing where they say, you're not going to run on us and load the box, if I'm Leary, I'm like, okay, cool. Let's play that game. And I'm not even sure that Kentucky has the dudes on the edge to match, but I like the quarterback play enough. That dude can throw receivers open.
He can. He absolutely can. It's alarming to me that we're 5 weeks in and he's thrown 5 picks. Okay, that's what I'm saying. I'm also saying that they've got Tavion Robinson, who's I think like a COVID super senior. It seems like he's been in college forever. I think this is his 3rd year at Kentucky, and he started at VT. And obviously they just want that that Wandale Robinson pipeline. That's the only reason they took him. But you got sophomores Berrien Brown and you've got Dane Key, and obviously. I believe Berrien Brown went up and made an electric catch against Georgia last year as a freshman. I know he did against Florida, or Dane Key did against Florida. Those guys can do that. But what I think is that's what they're going to have to rely on is some back shoulder stuff some acrobatic type stuff. They're going to have to hope and pray and do as much as they can to force Georgia into another one of these slow starts. I just don't think they have the consistency and the true balance to do it for 4 quarters. If they don't, and this would be the most shocking result in a long time, if they don't put Georgia away early, which they're not going to do. Nobody's done it. South Carolina had the chance to take a huge lead on Georgia. They played their best half of football all year. They didn't do it. Auburn had their chances to win that game last week. They didn't do it. And it's a tall task. Let's be honest. For both teams, it's a tall task. I don't like Kentucky's chances anymore.
I'm gonna ask you a question, okay?
All right.
And I'm gonna sandwich this question around the fact that you and I are best friends. I don't care what your wife says. I'm your best friend, not her. All right. I don't care what the other people in your life. I'm your best friend. Is it possible that you are looking at them through orange goggles?
Kentucky?
Mm-hmm. You loathe them, bro. You loathe.
I do hate them. Don't get me wrong, but I don't respect them. Like, that's the thing, is I don't respect them. They just had this quarterback that people talked about like he was going to be the next Aaron Rodgers. The draft talk started so early, and it never stopped for Will Levis. They never got a dang thing done with him. They literally did better with a Wildcat quarterback who was a receiver.
Terry Bowden?
Better, yes, Terry Bowden. Or Lynn Bowden. They did better with Lynn Bowden than they did with Will Levis. And that was with them bringing in Wan'Dale Robinson for his first year at Kentucky, who he exclusively threw the ball to, let's be honest. None of those other guys mattered. I don't even know how they recruited those other guys at that point.
Yeah.
And now they've got Devin Leary still asking Auburn, still asking Florida, still asking Alabama how you let that guy transfer to Kentucky when you need someone like himself, like what he was at NC State, if you get what I'm saying.
It was the Liam Cohen relationship, was it not?
And it may have been. Look,
is it Liam Cohen? Is that right? Is that the name?
He is the offensive coordinator. He's
back.
He was there for Will Levis's junior year. Then he left, and now he's back. But I mean, if I'm all those teams, or actually if I'm me, I'm asking myself how all those teams didn't walk to his house with their entire coaching staff and make him come to their school.
Sure.
Because I just don't trust Kentucky. They've had dudes, and now
That's fair.
They've got as many dudes as they've had. I don't remember a time in my life, 31 years of age, where they've had receivers like Dane Key, Varion Brown, and Tavion Robinson. They've got I wouldn't call it a three-headed monster, but they've got 3 good options. They've always had one here or there. You know, they've had a Ray Davis before. They've put running backs in the NFL, Benny Snell. They just did it again. Rodriguez in the NFL. Mm-hmm. But they don't ever get anything done with them. And part of the orange bias, if there is one, is that they can roll in with 10 wins and Tennessee having 4 or 5 and it not matter.
I mean, yeah, we own them. I said that way too soon. I should have waited post Tennessee Kentucky game to say that. I've probably jinxed it now. Well, listen, man, it's not that I disagree. It's really not that I'm really more playing the devil's advocate because I really wanted to stir your pot. It's really what it was.
You did well.
They do have some similarities as far as statistics go. Kentucky allowing 297 yards per game. Georgia only allowing 10 less, 87 yards per game, excuse me. Kentucky total offense, 396 yards per game. Georgia with almost 100 more and 481 yards per game. I said on the last episode that Georgia fans need to chill out, that Carson Beck is your guy. I don't know if you actually went and listened to that. Did you get a chance to go listen to that?
I did. Told you. And I actually wanted to mention that just now as well. He is your guy. The stats line up with, and Stetson's not the greatest. He's not the greatest barometer. He's not, his first starts as Georgia's quarterback. It's not what you want to strive for. It's what he did in the end that you want to strive for.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But he's on pace with that. He's doing fine. The deal is they don't have the dump trucks and the train, the game directors in the center of their defensive line.
Or in their backfield.
100% agree. Yeah. And this is where I think, speaking of their backfield, this is where on the offensive end of their backfield, a committee can bite you at times. You've got Dajon Edwards just now getting back to health. You've got Kendall Milton, who still trying to get back to health. You lost Branson Robinson. and you've lost so many dudes to the NFL.
Right.
An unbelievable amount of guys have gone to the NFL. It's going to catch up to you at times. You may three-peat in the middle of it. I hope to God you don't.
You might.
But it's your defensive front really that you're missing. It's not your quarterback that you're missing right now.
I agree entirely with that. And I'm just saying the cherry on top of that is also the lack of dudes that you've had in the backfield.
Yeah.
Like this is no disrespect to Edwards, because I think he's a really good running back. I think he's top 5 conference. All right. He's a really good running back. But then you turn around and you're also handing it off to a guy wearing a receiver number who actually does not bad, but he's not what you've had in the past. And then you turn around, I believe your third string guy is a white dude, Cash Williams, Cash Johnson, Cash Money
Johnson.
Records. I don't know.
Young Money.
Yeah, whatever. My point remains not the stable that you have had. And you could even make an argument that Carson Beck doesn't have the receiving core that Stetson had. But the common denominator there is Brock Bowers. They both, have gotten time with him.
Yeah.
There's an argument there. I'm not saying that's the case. I do think there's an argument there. So I'll welcome a disagreement and probably even align with a lot of what you would say on that.
Yeah.
But Jordan, they're like, he's not the guy. What are you comparing the beginning of Carson Beck's career to the end of Stetson's? You made a great point right there. Great point.
Yeah. And now the one downside is that they should be doing a lot more with their receivers. And I know that's hard when you've got big number 19 who should be in the Heisman race.
Just hand it to him now.
Hand it to him now. Stop the politicking. Stop the Caleb Williams repeat nonsense. It's hard to look. If I'm a quarterback, it's going to be hard for me not to look at 19. He could be blocking, and I'm like, "Here you go, buddy. That's what I'm doing." But the problem is you've now got Dominic Lovett, who was a wide receiver 1 at Missouri. You've got Ra Thomas, who put up unbelievable numbers at Mississippi State in an air raid.
Good points.
You've got Ladd McConkey. Now you've got Ladd McConkey, who is your wide receiver version of Brock Bowers in the security blanket sense, not in the explosion sense. Just now getting back to health. And that's big for them, man. Look, if we're looking for Georgia to take a step and get out of these cold starts and all these things, this is your recipe for it. Is Ladd McConkey's getting back. Milton is not going to be out all year. I do believe Branson Robinson is out all year, but you're going to be getting these guys back. Be thankful that you've got a factory of guys at offensive line. You're surviving your left tackle being out right now. You're surviving all these things and you're winning in the process. It's just not pretty, but think about what Kirby's going to do with that.
Oh, for sure.
Ears are going to be bleeding in halftime and in post game. They're going to be bleeding.
Yes. Long story short, you and I both agree on the Carson Beck perspective. Like if 100%. You and I are Georgia fans, which we will never be. I think we would be cool with Carson Beck. I think he's doing well. He's smart with the ball. Like what else do you want this guy to do right now? Whatever. It's not a video game. All right, here we go. Georgia sits at 14.5 with an over-under set at 47.5. Paper, rock, scissors, shoot, you lose, go.
Under. It's going under.
It's going under. Okay. Yeah.
The game is going under. Where Georgia has had these close games so far, let's say they start fast and jump up 14 or 20-0 on Kentucky. Well, the game's over that moment. They will not be throwing the ball another time unless it's 100% completion, that type deal.
Yeah.
The game's over if they jump out. Let's say Kentucky jumps out. 10-0 Kentucky, 10-3, 13, whatever, you name it. They're probably not scoring another point. Georgia's probably going to put that chokehold on them like they've done with Auburn, like they've done with South Carolina. It's a not game. The atmosphere should look, if you can, you should be able to get up for Kentucky. They're undefeated. It's been your last home not game was UAB, who did some things that you probably weren't happy about, scoring 21 points on you.
And Kentucky fans are talking that talk. Obviously Kentucky is not yet, of course, I don't think they will be. They're not Tennessee of last year talking that talk, and also doing it on the field. You know what I mean? Their schedule is unimpressive, minus the fact that they slapped the cheeks off of Florida. That's the only thing to note yet, which teams should do this year. It's going under. All that to say, it's going under. There's not a path in my mind where we get 48 points and we go over. I don't see any circumstance.
Georgia's winning this game. If they play it slow and lackadaisical, they're winning it by a touchdown. I don't think they're going to, because it's a night game. Your fans should be sitting there just ready to go off, ready for you to break out of your quote unquote slump. They should be doing it. You should be ready to prove it to them. Kirby has probably made your ears bleed since, the day you committed or stepped, all that time until now when he's actually got material to coach you on. Kentucky is not ready for this. I'm sorry. They've got to prove it to me before I'll ever pick them to do something like this. Since I've already said it's going to be a low-scoring game, since every Kentucky-Georgia game over the last 5 years has been a rainy, low-scoring game, you name it.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this one is 27-9, Georgia.
27-9 in Georgia's favor. So Kentucky just doesn't really do anything.
If they, I just said if Ray Davis gets 61 yards, because if he goes over 60, I'll be surprised. If Kentucky scores one touchdown, I'll be surprised. If they scores two, I will be floored.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think one would have to be defensively at that point.
I'll agree with that.
Two touchdowns, I think it would have to be a defensive touchdown.
I'll agree with that. Okay. I'm going to sit at 28-14 Georgia, which puts me at what is that math?
42 points. You're under
42. Yeah. So under few points shyer than I was expecting. Just a boring overall game. Yeah.
So boring.
The scoreboard will not be indicative of what is actually happening on the field. I agree with you. Georgia will have that anaconda-like, choke on throughout, and simply because this. All right, so here's my major difference, and I'm going to compare this with Georgia and Auburn last week. I said Auburn's playing with house money. They're going to let it loose, let it all rip, open the playbook, whatever. Whatnot, yada, yada, yada. They got nothing to lose. Well, in the same sense, yes, Kentucky sits at 20, top 20 ranking. They sit at 5-0. But also, what do you have to lose? Because everybody's already expecting. I mean, are you really going to compete for the conference? I mean, I guess you could if there ever was a year. I mean, this might be it. Are you competing for the playoff? No. So you should have a house money approach. But we've never seen that out of Kentucky. We've never seen that out under Stoops. It's almost like he tries to play we're the big dog, we're not the underdog. We are who we are. And I don't know what his locker room speeches are, but that's the persona and the personality that we've gotten out of them since he has been at the helm. So I'm going to say that Kentucky continues to Kentucky 28-14 dogs. But one question before we kill it. If Georgia does lose, if they do, it's not totally out of the realm of possibility. I mean, ESPN would say that there's a 13% chance. Georgia's done, right? As a playoff contender. What? Really? Hesitation?
They're not done because
they're not done. Okay.
Because to me, they're not done because there's no way. There's not a chance. Look, hell would freeze over before Kentucky ran the table. Okay, I think do they have Alabama? This is the year they have Alabama, right?
You keep talking, and I'll confirm that for you. Yes, they do. They do. Yes,
now, they're going to host them, which is big. But see, I'll probably have a very similar spiel if we preview that game. Which, who knows if we will? We'll see what those teams look like at that time. They're not running this table enough to keep Georgia out of Atlanta, for one. And I'm sorry, I don't see Georgia's loss, coming from an SEC opponent this year. I just don't see it. I mean,
you're saying you don't see them losing to Kentucky?
Well, I'm working with your scenario if they did.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I don't think they're done in the playoff because of how open it is as of right now. And obviously, every year in week 6, it's pretty open. But the SEC is wide open. There is no favorite in the West to really keep them from winning the SEC championship game. And I think a one-loss SEC champion's in.
Okay, well, let me paint the scenario. You could potentially have a one-loss Pac-12 champion. You could potentially have you could have an undefeated Pac-12 champion. You could have a one-loss you could have this scenario where Oregon and Washington and maybe USC beat up on one another. You have a very real chance of having two of them. You have a very real chance of Michigan and Ohio State. You have
or Penn State.
Or Penn State. You have a very real chance of an undefeated Florida State. Coming back to the Georgia conversation, you lose this game, and listen, this isn't the BCS anymore. Committees, they're looking at the Kentucky brand. They're looking at the logo, and I think that's a terrible loss, especially if they do like you're saying, where they're not going to run the table. I mean, Mizzou, who's now ranked, Tennessee, Mississippi State, who that's a rivalry. Hosting Alabama at South Carolina, that's not going to be easy. And now Louisville's really good. Okay, so they don't run that. So that makes that loss look worse.
And it's at home, so I'll give you that.
And it's at home. Yeah, and it's at home. I have to think. Listen, they lose this game, there's like a 90... there's like an 8% chance that you still make the playoff. I think it tanks you if you lose this one, which is why if you're Mark Stoops, you just let it all hang out, man. Just balls to the wall.
Agree. Yeah, like he's got, and see that's a problem in and of itself, because if he does flip his script, we don't know how it's going to go. It could implode, is what it could do, because he's been so conservative. He is the opposite of his brother and the flashiness at Oklahoma. He is the opposite. It's hard for me to envision it. Obviously, I'm saying that, but I just think there would be a crease in the door, and I just don't ever think a one-loss SEC champions getting held out. Call me biased. I would say, look at history is what I would say.
You're right, but the strength
but you're correct. If there's ever a year where there's going to be too many problems, right now it's this year.
Well, even inside the conference, just look at the SEC alone, and what our people are saying it's down. Now, you could argue that there's parity inside of it, but I think most of us agree that the conference is just down as a whole. And now you add the conference is down and you lost to Kentucky. I don't know, man. I don't think that's a good look for Georgia.
It's a terrible recipe. You don't want to play that game.
No, not at all. Not at all. Now, nonetheless, we both agreed that, Georgia's going to win this game. I mean, and the difference, the X factor could just be 7:00 at night in Sanford Stadium.
And like I've talked about so much, road teams are not performing well. Okay. Georgia's going to be doing their stupid shift to the defensive line and their sugar huddles, and the fans are going to be butt naked with red and black lettering and dog tags around their neck. They're going to be barking, and Harry Potter, how they say he was balking. That's what it's going to be. That's the scene. And I'm sorry, I don't see Kentucky being ready for it.
Sugar huddles and naked dog fans. That's all I heard.
Yeah, that's it, man.
I don't even know what a sugar huddle is, but I'm going to be watching, be looking for one.
The receivers are lined up, the offensive line, and then the quarterback and running back are in the huddle, and they sprint to the line.
Gotcha. Never heard it called that.
They proceed to blow Kentucky off the ball 3 yards before anybody gets touched.
Okay, well, now that I know what that is, I won't be looking for it, but I'm definitely looking for naked Georgia fans in the stadium.
At least men, never know about the women down there.
All right. We both predicted it. Georgia is going to host the Kentucky Wildcats and get that win. We like the dogs here. Real quick question before we kill it. What do you want to happen?
I would like a 6-3 or a 3-2 7 overtime game.
Like where the heart just comes out of both of them?
Yes. Okay. That's what I want for Texas A&M, Alabama. You didn't have to ask, or you didn't ask, but I want 7 overtimes, because these are Tennessee's next 2 opponents, Texas A&M and Alabama. Give me the maximum number of overtimes before they stop the game for player safety, 3-2 score or something like that.
I'm going to say what I want is that both teams have to forfeit, because sugar huddles, naked dog fans, and grown men dressed as cats are now considered illegal. They both have to forfeit. Go Vols! All right, that's going to be all for us today. There will be more to be on the lookout for as far as the slate goes. Keep your eyes on Vanderbilt, Florida. Keep your eyes on things like Syracuse and North Carolina. There was another one that I wanted to point out here. Obviously, keep your eyes on Colorado at Arizona State. How does Colorado bounce back? Notre Dame at Louisville. Louisville is certainly no pushover. How does Ole Miss continue their energies against the Arkansas Razorbacks? And it's just overall a good slate, man. Good slate. We're not going to be like Kirby. He's going to make your ears bleed. We're going to tickle them, and we thank you for letting us tickle your ears. We love you guys. Make sure you hit the like button before you bounce off here. Make sure you tell your mama, your daddy, and your grandpa, and lame Gamecock fans about the Pandemonium Reigns podcast. We love you guys. God bless. Go Balls.
GBO.
Pandemonium Reigns.